world. All right, tonight the second phase of collecting public and institutional views on the Building Bridges initiative has kicked off, a process that divided the political class right down the middle. Now you are either with them or against them. Sentiments so deeply disturbing and castigated by many. Parliament has also resumed sittings after a long break, and its entry is obviously very full. And those are not the only areas of focus tonight. A mega scandal in the making, and the executive is at crossroads of allegations flying around and touching on it. Tonight we focus on the divisions cutting across. Later, the cartoon of the day just before Who Said What. Timer comes right before the show closes. And tonight we are back in time 30 years ago to the date today. But first, it's my take tonight. And tonight, a huge cloud of uncertainty hangs precariously over the heads of many Kenyans. Those who cannot afford Medicare, now those overburdened by the high levels of poverty, the same ones attempting to have at least a meal a day. Now the ones living on less than 100 shillings a day. The National Hospital Insurance Fund, weighed down by scandals and intrigues after intrigues, could just collapse. In January, if you remember this, President Uhuru Kenyatta suspended the implementation of the new National Hospital Insurance Fund regulations or guidelines after the changes were met with public outcry and criticism from a section of including unions and politicians. Now, some of the contentious rules as proposed included requiring individuals who voluntarily joined the scheme to wait for 3 months before accessing their scheme benefits, although they shall have been contributing for all that time. And now a new report released by the Health Financial Reforms Experts panel reveals the obvious, that not only has the NHIF been suffering from mismanagement of funds and endemic corruption, but is likely to collapse in about 2 years. Now if this was to happen, then you will be on your own. NHIF is the only national medical insurance scheme. This is what many depend on, both in and outpatients. If NHIF dies, it will die with many. It will kill the hopes of many patients. Now, medical services will be totally unaffordable to many. This is the reason why tonight, even as the management yesterday defended themselves, their actions in the past few months, and as they justified what they have been able to do or to achieve, measures they've put in place to tame and check corruption. Their joint efforts with the DCI, we want to focus their attention on what's important. Making medical services affordable obviously is the most important. NHIF needs to live up to its mandate, fulfill its expectations. Now, Kenyans will not take less than that. Those contributing to the scheme will hold you accountable. And of course, President Kenyatta needs to step in and once again, like he did in January, give direction. And more importantly, the government agencies need to expedite the recovery of NHIF funds stolen by those they trusted or we trusted and those that contributed. And tonight, we borrow the words of Brad Pitt. He's a renowned American, he's an actor and a film producer. He says this: let us be the ones to say we are not satisfied that your place of birth determines your right for life. Let us be outraged, let us be loud, let us be bold. My guests tonight, Caleb Kositany and Peter Kaluma. At Ken Mijungu on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Welcome to our program tonight. Join the conversation online. As always, use the hashtag Sidebar. Our program begins right now.
Kama umebaki nje, shauri yako.
Ati BBI ni bus ambaye haina brake.
Gari hii itaenda na haina brake.
Wewe unaweza ingia bus na bibi yako na watoto ambaye haina brake.
Shetani ashindwe.
Na tena driver hiyo bus haina brake, ni mtu ya rege.
Ati BBI itatumika ati kuzuia matoleo kanisani.
Kama kazi itagawiwa huko juu, Deputy President, hata wewe chukua moja.
Sisi wanasiasa tusiende kujiwekea viti yenye tunajitakia.
BBI msitumie kugawanya wananchi.
All right, gentlemen, welcome to our show tonight. And I want to discuss something that just cropped up this evening. Before I discuss that, you were just telling us off camera that when I read my take tonight, that you made a proposal to the Health Committee. What is this about?
Well, I did, and I'm happy that you mentioned about NHIF. It's of serious concern, which I saw when we just opened Parliament, or I just joined Parliament, and I gave a legislative proposal to the Health Committee, which they're still considering. And my proposal was that NHIF cannot survive in the current structure. It cannot survive in the current form of doing business. My proposal was NHIF should be run the way AAR is. They should have their own clinics, they should have their own chemists, they should employ their own doctors, so that they are competing with other, even CT scan machine, X-ray machines, everything that is provided medically. NHIF should be able to provide that service from their clinics. And they can do it because they have the infrastructure already, so that they are able to compete with the other hospitals and bring the costs of medical services down. Okay. Right now, outsourcing it, there's a lot of corruption.
That's one of the reasons why this is not working.
That is one of the big reasons.
Where is this proposal right now?
It is still with the Health Committee. I even asked one of the members the other day, and they told me they would be calling me again soon so that we can fast track it, especially after these stories came up. But I think it would be sad if NHIF collapsed. It has really transformed the medical facilities. It has really helped a lot of people. This morning I was in my constituency. A young boy, a Form 1 student, was knocked down by a motorbike and he died. And because he had NHIF, the parents, who are very from a humble background, did not have a heavy bill to carry, because NHIF was working. So I think it would be sad if NHIF collapsed. It would be very sad for this country. Okay. And we know we shouldn't let it collapse.
And obviously, Mheshimiwa, you deal with cases of people calling you every day in the constituency to contribute to their medical bills or even funeral, which the bills that still remain in hospital after they are buried and all that. This is something that obviously concerns you as a legislator.
Yes, certainly, and I want to thank my brother that he was thinking around those matters, but it may not help much. My view is that all socio-security funds we have in the country have had the problem of corruption. Whether you look at NHIF, whether you go to NSSF, and I think we must firmly deal with corrupt officials running those public socio-security funds. But the major thing that I think would salvage NHIF, because Ken, medical services is a constitutional right currently, and NHIF is, of course, a very critical enabler. In my view, we would save NHIF if we required that all civil servants, all public servants, and when I say public servants, I'm including state officers, be insured or covered in terms of health provision by NHIF. I do not understand, Ken, how we can have a national hospital insurance fund, and you go to Parliament, members of Parliament are being insured by some private firm, and hospitals are wrecking a lot of money on very minor treatments. You have teachers now being required to be insured elsewhere. Very huge funds which would go into NHIF to strengthen it are, of course, being directed to those other private entities. You have the police, and generally the larger bulk of public servants. I believe if we directed all the monies which go to medical provision and the public service to NHIF, we will not worry about its stability. And that way, imagine a situation where, Ken, I was under NHIF, and then as members of Parliament, state officers and all public officers were also required to be treated in public health facilities, which is another second thing I believe would work. I would be asking the state of Kenyatta, I would be asking the state of the hospital in Homa Bay, because when you are sick, it is not only that border person or that poor mama, but you will be making your bed to lie on in the hospitals. You will ensure there are facilities across. I think those are the farmer, policy interventions before we even go legislative to secure the survival of NHIF and our health sector.
Okay. Yeah. And generally, I think we agree that the rogue officers need to be reined in.
Yes. Oh, yes.
All right. Oh, yes. Gentlemen, I want to discuss substantially the BBI, but there's something that happened this evening that I think I should bring to your attention. We just learned that the Deputy President was supposed to go to Embu, And right after he made that announcement, because he's supposed to be there over the weekend, there was an attempt to block him. And I say it's an attempt because where he was supposed to hold a meeting, is said to be closed and under renovation. But it's not even because of the closure and taking it under renovation, but the timing that is suspect. And this is not the first time we hear or we report that the deputy president is going somewhere, and there are such underhand deals for me to block him from going. This is a national leader, this is a deputy president. Does it concern you, Caleb?
Well, it not only concerns me, but it concerns a lot of Kenyans, excuse me. I also heard that story, but I'm told that the governor has reconsidered his decision. I don't know how true that is, and the venue will be available. And the function is not a political function, it is a church function. What is happening to Kenyans that they have become so desperate that they want even to block the deputy president from attending church functions, I do not know. But if Wambora has rescinded his decision and the venue is available, the deputy president will be in Embu for the church function on Saturday.
Okay, which is a good move. I don't know if you want to comment over this.
Yeah, Ken, you've said that the stadium is being renovated?
They said they're closing it down for renovation.
Yes, well, I'm not in the county government of Embu to know the reason as to why they would, stop any functions from being held there. Of course, if the stadium is under renovations, it would be understandable. I don't know the arrangement around the deputy president, and because of that, I don't want to comment more than that.
Okay.
But I would only believe that there is a good reason if indeed the deputy president is being, told to do things elsewhere. If it is a church function, why is it not in a church? I don't understand. So essentially, I'm saying I'm not alive to the circumstances around the issue, and I think it would not be right for me to comment.
Okay. Yeah, but what if it was true that right after he made the announcement that I'm going to Embu over the weekend, then the same day an announcement comes in an hour or two later after he says he's going to
We
Embu?
had those challenges, you remember, in our previous term of parliament. We would be told Uhuru Park has been booked by such organization, and we always ended up in court. This is coming quite early. If the team of the deputy president believes not in the reasons being given, they can go to court. Remember, many of the occasions we went to the court up at Mlimani, and we got access when the county had denied us access, or the state machinery through the county. So there is enough time to address some of these issues. I don't think that it would be right for us as leaders to begin, casting aspersions or doubts around the reasons being given by either side for proceeding in the manner they want to proceed. I believe reasonableness will proceed.
You just don't want to go straight to the point, but if it was to happen that way, then it's totally uncalled for. If the purpose was to block him.
I've told you that the deputy president is the principal assistant of the president. So I imagine he's assisting the president in that church function he's going for. My issue would be, is the stadium under renovation or not? And why is it not in charge? But I don't want to be a party to the state machinery and matters of the county to which I'm not privy.
Okay. All right. You want to add something?
No, I don't. I really don't
okay.
think. I think it's a
good thing if the governor reconsidered,
yes,
because our report was out, and because it's not the first time we're hearing of such. So, gentlemen, let's discuss the BBI now. The second phase has begun, collecting views, and we see several presentations. I will be playing a soundbite from ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi, his proposal also. But I want your collective or your views on the fact that this has begun, and the people who made the presentations then are almost the exact persons who are making the presentations right now. Let me begin with you, Mheshimiwa.
Yes, the BBI task force was initially called task force. If you've noted the Gazette notice which regazetted them, the title changed to BBI Steering Committee, recognizing that the task they were given was largely done. What is happening in this phase of the BBI programs, as you remember the president did advise when the report was launched at Bomas, it's a validation process. Validation, can you remember when the task force went around, various groups, various regions gave views. what you saw in the report was their distillation, the task force's distillation of what they thought the people were converging upon. By validation, it has been bounced back to the people to confirm that really their thoughts were properly captured. Okay? And that is the process going on. So the task force is no longer a task force, it's now a steering body. And in terms of validation, Ken, my view is that we must reach as many Kenyans as possible. The reason as to why we have constituent assemblies, we have constitutional conventions like the one we had in Bomas, is that we don't have a stadium big enough to accommodate all Kenyans to discuss their constitutional and legal and societal issues. So if we can have the largest reach, it would be a very good thing. And so I wanted to confirm that there is nothing wrong having the parties who gave information do so. As there is also nothing wrong in extending this thing to every other Kenyan, including all Kenyans or other Kenyans who did not give views. Because ultimately, whether it is policy interventions, it's legal interventions, it's constitutional interventions, it's going to affect all Kenyans at once. So it's a validation process. But let those who gave views go back. If they believe that their views were not captured as firmly as they wanted it to, let them, seek their validation. That's what the validation is about. If they believe, the reports as we move towards, legislative and constitutional, amendment proposals need to be firmed up, let them give those views. But ultimately, we must have, those views over which Kenyans, converge. Okay. And Ken, you've seen what happened in Kisii, you've seen what happened in Kakamega, you saw what happened in Kitui, you saw how, prominently the issue of cost, the issue of land was raised by the coast. Yes,
I'll discuss the specific
there are all those issues, yes. But largely, BBI is about a conversation by Kenyans about how this nationhood, the Kenyan nation, we've been struggling, to build can be. So the conversation, whether it is by the BBI task force, which, steering committee, which is so proceeding, let people give their views. Okay. Ultimately, we want to see how these, views are distilled into constitutional, legislative, and policy, interventions. Okay,
unfortunately, what you're saying, I agree with it. But unfortunately, there is this feeling of seclusion and people who have been left out. And the Deputy President at one point said it's sort of giving directions. If someone doesn't toe the line, then you're considered not part of it. Is that inclusive, really?
I don't think so. As I've said, we want Kenyans to have a conversation. Ken, we are a very political society. I think we have even forgotten the situation we were in preceding the elections. Kenyans have even forgotten, for the first time in our history, presidential elections were nullified. And there were issues around it. Kenyans have forgotten that a vast section of this country did not, participate in the subsequent elections. Kenyans are forgetting how we lost 17, 18 people just across the airport and Uhuru Park here the other day. And we've had these issues. The idea that we can talk about how we can be together is a beautiful thing. Okay. And I've never had anybody to say, Ken, that your view must be this. Instead, I've had rallying calls. Please let Kenyans be heard. Okay. If you are not heard by now, we are going to the next stage. And to me, that is a good encouragement.
I'm going to come back to that, but let me hear from Mheshimiwa. This talk about the BBI and the second phase, and we still see talk from leaders who are divided on opinion as to how even it should be done, as to who should be present, as to who should say what, and how their views will be accommodated.
I think, first of all, this BBI story is actually becoming a pain to us as leaders and Kenyans. And going by what transpired in the Kisii meeting, the Kakamega meeting, and even in Mombasa and Kitui, that is not the BBI that President Kenyatta told us about, because he told us BBI was about inclusivity, BBI was about bringing the people together and curing the things that, the problems that give us tension every time we have a political contest or rather a presidential election. When we went to Bomas, we were all eager to know what the BBI task force then was going to unveil. And when they unveiled, we read, of course, no printed copy. We read on what was given on the internet, which to date has not been owned by anybody officially. It's just posted there on the internet, but it is not a government document. It's not
in other words, you're not sure what document you're reading.
Somebody can come out tomorrow and say that was not the original document. So but that one that was launched in Bomas, we said we support it. The reason why we support it is because we are not burdening the taxpayer. My position, and I think the position of many people, is we should not be running BBI to try and say, we Kenyans fight all the time because of winner take it all. Now let us divide and create some positions. Let us create positions for governors who have done their second term, create some regional governments, and we say we are solving the problems that affect Kenyans. That is not the solution. So we are hoping that this BBI, starting now from the meeting that is going to be in Narok on Saturday, and the subsequent one that will be in Meru on the 29th, we want to see all Kenyans who have come to be welcome. But my personal position is that the team, the Yusuf Haji team, should take charge of BBI rallies. Let us politicians step aside.
But will you allow them to take charge?
Yes, I have no problem. I want a BBI rally in Narok whereby Yusuf Haji is seated at the head of the table and he listens to the views and he's given a document by the Ma community. These are our views. It should not be given to a person who has got interest in the political competition that is coming ahead.
But where do you draw the line? Because even for that document to be presented, it has to be done by a politician.
Yeah,
because
the document
represent the community.
You see, like today, the Ma community had a meeting with Raila Odinga. He's not a member of the task force.
Yes.
He's not a member of the task force. But he seems to be, BBI seems to be hanging around him. He's hanging around BBI. That is not his job. His job is in charge of infrastructure in Africa and wherever. That is the job.
That's not true, because they brought through the handshake, they brought the BBI. So he's right at the center of it. You can't say that's not his job. He concentrates somewhere else.
Then the task force should be reconstituted. Have Raila as the head. So that we take our views to him, to a person who is officially there. Who is there as who? Ken, you tell me.
As the
initiators of this
process.
Why would I, if BBI were to come to Uasin Gishu County, why would I want to go and have a meeting with Raila Odinga? To discuss what? About Uasin Gishu County? Why would I hand over to him a document about our views on BBI? I would hand over to Yusuf Haji, the man who has been gazetted. So if Raila's role is to collect views of the BBI, then he'll let him be gazetted.
All right, gentlemen, I'm taking a short break. When I come back, Peter Kalume is itching to reply to that. I'm coming back with that discussion because it's a new way of looking at it. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back.
Prepare yourself for a new live bet experience. Top minute, boosted live bet odds. Mozart, make a decision.
Heaviness and a burning inside, it could be heartburn.
Indigestion and heartburn? Eno gets to work in 6 seconds and works on the 6 symptoms of heartburn so you can keep living life non-stop. Eno, fight heartburn and indigestion fast.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more, and now you can win.
Naitwa Joseph Kipkurui kutoka Uasin Gishu County, mfanyikazi katika kanisa la St. Patrick's Catholic Church. Nilikuwa nyumbani ndio nikapigiwa simu na watu wa Safaricom, nikaelezwa kuwa mimi ndiye mshindi wa nyumba na nimefurahi sana. Ningependa kuwahimiza watu wenye wako nyumbani zidi kushiriki katika Lipa na M-Pesa promotion kama mimi ndiye mshindi wa siku ya leo. Je, wewe?
Lipa na M-Pesa and win now. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
You go to high school in Inglewood. You think you're going to get into Harvard?
I'm from a poor, crime-filled neighborhood, raised by a single mother, don't know my dad, blah, blah. It's cliche.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Malcolm Adekambi. I'm a straight-A student with nearly perfect SAT scores.
You probably got like one of them photogenic brains.
You mean photographic memory?
What'd I just say?
I mean, yeah, you said it. Yeah.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Malcolm Adekambi.
Can you dig it?
Welcome home to Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Make the impossible possible. Success just doesn't happen. Invest in Amani Ridge, the place of peace. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
This is the first day nimekuja hapa kwa ofisi na greeting ile ya kwanza nakuja kupata ni this is the payroll and this is the only balance we have in the account. Nitoe pesa wapi?
Hii nyumba tutachukua nini bana? Kiti huyu?
Sikuli pizza for breakfast, nataka chai na omelette.
Hivi ndo mnaenjoy yani mimi na Mugobia?
Nilikwambia sisi ni roommate. Mimi hapa niko tu kasi.
Kwa hivyo wewe ni mbocha. Na wewe umekuja kama mbocha ama bibi?
Buji. Iko nini? Unafanya nini hapa? Hapana, niko na my boss.
With Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Tunasanya masaa hii milioni 1. Alafu narudi naye napatia wale nini tume ya uchaguzi. Kisha tunaingia kwa kiwanja. Mambo ya referendum. Kama unapinga, maana yake wewe unajulikana, unazoea kupinga kila mara kwa mara. Tunaona kwa kiwanja, kama kwa kiwanja.
Kenya ni yetu sisi zote, na hakuna mtu anapaswa kushurutisha Wakenya wengine kwamba itafanyika hivi, mpende msipende, itafanyika sijui siku gani, mpende msipende. Hiyo lugha ya mpende msipende, jameni, pelekeni kwingine. Kenya ni nchi ya demokrasia, kila mwananchi atapatiwa nafasi maoni yake isikike.
All right, member for Homa Bay, you respond to what he says about the involvement of Raila Odinga, the second phase, and of course what the deputy president is saying. Hiyo maneno ya lazima.
Yeah, of course we want all Kenyans to give their views and participate because it's a national issue. And Ken, I want to say that look at the avenues created. For those who believe the public rallies are not very good, like I hear my brother to be saying, you saw Musalia Mudavadi even after being at Kakamega, presenting views to the steering committee, so university students. My request, without going into politics, would be that when we are thinking about our country, let as many of us avail themselves of the opportunity, whether you're going to the public meetings or you are going directly to the task force, whether you are getting President Kenyatta, you are getting Raila Odinga, just ensure that ultimately your views are considered by the task force on the table where they are. You've seen how the public meetings, which have been so far held in 4 places, are being conducted. Preceding the meeting, the people said various stakeholders, and there is a very rich category of people, and they distill what is important for their region. Tellingly, Ken, look at the views which came from Mombasa. For instance, when the coast, BBI, public rally, was put together. Were they captured in the initial report in the manner they presented them? Certainly not. And this is why I'm saying this is a validation process. When you seek to validate Ken, you are asking the people who gave their views whether their views were captured correctly, whether everything they said was wholly captured. And for those who could have not have given their views, because this is affecting the nation, now that we have a report and you are a citizen of Kenya, do you agree or you disagree with the report in the contents? If you disagree, what proposals would you have which can be thought through by the steering committee to come up with a document which can take us to resolving those things bedeviling our nationhood? And so that I would request my brother and those who are opposed to giving views, find your channel. You have a problem with the public meetings. My view, you remember I started by telling you that if you had a stadium big enough to accommodate all Kenyans, that would be the best forum. But let us not just restrict this thing to the few who can reach the steering committee where they are. If we can go to the regions, my view is that even the number of meetings we have scheduled, or the BBI team have scheduled the public meetings, are few. If we could have the maximum reach for Kenyans, reach them so that their views also count. I disagree with the deputy when he seems to suggest that people are being forced to hold particular views. No, take your views there. I can tell you, when you saw the views in Mombasa, you saw the views in Kisii, there were people even making proposals which were not contained before, but they had to be listened to. You saw the Kuria people in the Kisii meeting saying they want their own county. You saw the unique issues in Kitui. Ultimately, let these things be brought together. Let the steering committee distill those issues over which we have a convergence of thought and thinking as Kenyans, and issues which we can then seek the best intervention to secure the final goal, which is set in the 9 points we are dealing with.
Mheshimiwa, would you rather go for the public rallies, or would you want to go before the steering committee?
The public rallies is not a bad idea, but the way they are structured, it's evolving around politicians, non-gazetted politicians, some holding no elective posts, and that is where those are the people that are the ones giving the... Remember, on one of the national TVs, I don't know whether it was NTV or which one, they had an interview about this BBI and the rallies that have been going on, and one gentleman from Kisii, and he said, I'm an ODM member, I even ran and didn't make it in ODM. BBI came to Kisii, we held a meeting, we gave views, and then the memorandum that was read at the stadium did not capture anything. It was not what we presented, did not capture anything that we presented. It was a foreign document to those who had participated. And this is just a young person from Kisii. So those stories that are emanating from there, and I want to say this, Ken, and for the benefit of everybody in the Republic, let us not take Kenyans for granted. We are dealing with a very informed generation. We are dealing with Kenyans who are always on the internet, they're reading the newspaper, they're even listening to each other and talking to each other. We need to restructure the way the BBI is. Let the Haji team take charge.
But don't you think that is too late? It's too late for that.
It is not too late. They've only held 4 meetings. The meeting, an order, executive order can be given tomorrow that the Embu meeting, the Narok meeting, and the Embu meeting is going to be run by Yusuf Haji and the Yusuf Haji team.
Can I ask my brother a simple question?
Go ahead.
The young man you are talking about, what stops him from writing down his thoughts and presenting it directly to the task force?
The issue is, why collect my views, then go and read a document that is not there? And he was not talking for himself.
I'm saying, when you do a report in which so many people have views, it is not common that their views would be similar. Ultimately, what you get in a document like this is a distillation on what the people generally agree about.
Okay.
If you held a strong position on a matter which has not been captured because it has been subsumed in other people's views, you still have another channel. Write it down and send it to the task force.
Which is true, but the concern is the concern for the people who attended the meeting.
Yes,
probably is this is what we agreed upon, and I assume before it was presented before the public, probably it was read to them.
Yes,
to confirm the minutes.
Yes.
So his concern could be this is not what we confirmed. It's totally different. Is it not a valid concern?
I hear Caleb to be saying that an individual he associates with the ODM party, and he says he's a young man, says that what was being read in Kisii immediately upon
is not what they agreed in the consultative meeting.
Is not according to him, what they agreed upon, because whatever they agreed upon was read before them in public. This is something we are hearing from him. We never saw it, and I think the media has been very kind to broadcast, most of the points when resolutions are being had. We never saw that dissent. But I'm saying, it is not the case that when you meet, even where we are on the table here, Ken, your views and perspectives around each and every issue on this table will not always be, you know, in convergence or in agreement. If the majority to Caleb and Kaluma's position is taken as the general position, you still have the channel to write it down. The important thing is that be heard as a Kenyan.
Even if your view is not considered,
correct,
be heard.
Be heard. I mean, present it. Ultimately, even when you present it to the task force, can we have how many Kenyans currently?
47 million.
47.6. I was told a number like that. You will have 47.6 million, you know, views if we were to proceed on the ideal position.
Okay.
These views, ultimately, you'll pick what the majority want. But the most important thing is that you've been heard in terms of how you wanted, you know, the nation to move forward. I've never heard, you know, Caleb say that I went to attend this public rally, I was kept away. I've never heard anybody say that the deputy president, for instance, if I were to give an example, was in Kisii and it was bad. I mean, it would be a different case. But if these are meetings open to everybody, you know, don't search for roadblocks. See a way
we saw what happened in
which,
Kitui. We saw what happened in Mombasa.
Kitui was a beautiful meeting. Mombasa was a beautiful meeting.
Having a member sitting on the ground and the governor shouting at Tolewe, two governors.
No, which governor?
Charity Ngilu and Nyoro.
I saw, you're talking about Moses Kuria?
Yes.
I saw him sit on the podium.
Later, after the Wananchi demanded that he be given a seat.
If you go on a frolic of your own, and let us agree, Ken, I've been to Kakamega. You never even saw a mention of Kaluma in Kakamega. I was in Kitui. Did you see Kaluma or a mention? I mean, why go into a public meeting from which we need to get regional views and insist you are going there to sit in a particular way you must address? Sometimes go to these places to hear the concerns of the region. It is their forum.
There is no evidence of Moses Kuria forcing himself anywhere or even forcing himself to give us
even the concerns about Moses Kuria. In Mombasa, there was an incident.
Yes.
He refused to stand when everyone else stood up.
And it's not a must.
But why him?
It's not a must.
Why him?
That you'll ask Moses. I'm sure you have access to him.
You just brought it. No, but you're the one who brought it on the table.
Maybe if I was there also, I wouldn't have stood.
Yeah. Ken, the issues...
But I would stand for my president.
Ken, I'm here on the understanding
yes,
that the BBI matters are beyond temporal politics. And so, to me, discussing how a member of parliament, where he sat and how he was treated, to me, it's not an issue. Kositanya was in Mombasa.
But it's important for inclusivity.
I went
It's important
there.
when you're talking about inclusivity.
Yes. Don't go there, you know, rabble-rouse or create opportunities to interfere with otherwise a program which is proceeding well, so that you can blame, you know, the organization. Just go there. I'm telling you, I was in Mombasa. Ken, you never saw me on TV. I was in the crowd. Not even my party is aware I was in that crowd. And there, what are the concerns of Mombasa? And then you can see me relay for you word for word what I heard.
Okay.
You see, when Kaluma says he was there is a certain group of people who are expected to be in Mombasa, and they were treated in a certain manner. And when we decided that we were going to join in the meeting, it was a big issue. It was like, why are these guys coming to our meeting? In fact, people went public and said, why are you coming to our meeting? And you are opposing BBI. When we are not on record as having opposed BBI, we are saying we are supporting. BBI has launched in Bomas. Has launched at Bomas of Kenya. So
I think that you're not even sure if it's the one.
We are not even sure if it is the one, but if it is that one. And that is why we have riders. We are saying that one has launched in Bomas. That is the one we are going for. Now, Ken, to go back to the story of the young man from Kisii, the speed at which they had the consultative meeting and then went into the public rally and the document, or rather the memorandum, was read out, tells you that nobody took time to filter the information that they collected there. It was just
so you think it was a document that was already
It was a document that somebody carried from Nairobi.
What do you say about Kakamega?
Yeah. Kakamega one was good, and we've not had any complaint from Kakamega because Mombasa also was good. Kitui. And Mombasa have taken even Kitui was also good.
Correct.
But there was a complaint from Kisii, and that's why I'm raising it. Because Kitui they gave out the and Mombasa it's only that when the crowd demanded that Moses Kuria speaks, the microphones went off and the meeting ended prematurely. And we don't want that to happen. But anyway, that's not the issue. But the biggest issue here is there a document a BBI document that has already been prepared, and then we're just being told here to zungumuze na nini na nini.
We have been calling for this document even to be printed and issued to the people.
There was a story of a governor
has access to.
There was a story of a governor who attempted to print, and I'm told he got some hotline, and he was told, wachana na hiyo, that is not you're crossing the boundary. Yeah.
Ken, so, in our community, we have a proverb that states you can take a donkey to the river, but you cannot force it to drink water, or you will be kicked. I mean, let us agree there is only so much that can be done. You hear my brother saying they know a document which was at Bomas, which they support. They're again saying it should be printed. Are we forgetting that both the Standard newspaper and the Nation newspaper had pullouts, complete pullouts of the BBI report in the Bomas? And by the way, which documentation has a wider, reach than the Nation newspaper together with the Standard? Ultimately, if you ask even the proponents or even the implicit opponents, their side, they'll tell you we've not read it. Do I Google for you the BBI report now and you'll see it come on the phone?
But the question is, do we know if it's
Kaluma, what we are holding here?
It is. I mean, how can we not know it is the one when it was read in public and discussed at Bomas?
Obviously,
and it was live on television.
You see, Honorable Kaluma, my colleague, this is the Constitution of Kenya.
Yes.
Printed at the government printer. This is gazetted. BBI has not been gazetted. So it is not an official government document.
What do you mean?
It is not an official document. Even the pullouts that were there in the newspapers, and how many Kenyans read the newspapers? In my own constituency, Soy constituency, how many Kenyans get a copy of the Nation or the Standard?
Ken, you're a lawyer,
so
I'm a lawyer.
The pullouts.
Do we gazette reports? I don't understand. Even in terms of lawmaking, Caleb, even if we are objecting, I mean, we need to be reasonable. Even in terms of law, what do we gazette?
But Mheshimiwa, I think it's
a
true.
law which has been assented.
When we were doing the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution,
yes,
just before it was promulgated, it was shared with the public,
yes,
and we all saw it.
Yes.
So when it was being promulgated, we were all aware of what's being promulgated.
Yes.
Because it was in hard copies.
Yes.
Not just inserts in newspapers.
Yes.
Why can't the government do that? Print enough copies and distribute it. Why can members of parliament like you and Caleb here print enough copies and distribute to the constituency?
Ken, when we went to Bomas, I expected, as is normal practice, that at the end of the whole exercise, as we were walking out, as a member of parliament for Soy, I would be told, where is your vehicle? Here are a few cartons, take to your people. They can go and share, even 100 people can sit at us and read it in barazas. And we just, as we went, nothing happened.
Ken, you are talking about the 2010 Constitution.
Yes.
Was our access to digital platform as it is now?
In 2010.
Was it as it is today? I mean, are you suggesting in this forum that BBI document is only out there when it is in hard copy printed?
What is the reach of smartphones and computers in this country?
Deep.
But it's not to
Anybody,
the extent
I can tell you, anybody who can read has BBI report in his hand.
Anyone who can read. What of the ones who cannot read?
If they choose not to read it, I was telling you cannot force a donkey to drink.
What of the people who cannot read?
The ones who cannot read it.
Yes.
The Nation newspaper and the Standard went out of their way and printed it. And the Nation and the Standard, we always say, you have the widest national coverage.
Okay.
If you still refuse to pick it and read it, really will be forcing you. And let me tell you, Ken, even the 2010 preparatory documents leading to the 2010 Constitution, I can bet not even all lawyers in the country read it, not even all politicians. So there is the maximum. The fact of the matter is that the document is available for Kenyans who care to read and for Kenyans who love their country. I would be worried if we are here to debate what roadblocks can be put to stop Kenyans from reading a document which is there. Okay. And in any event, even if you did not read the document, you know the issues around BBI. As a Kenyan, have your thoughts considered. If you're not going to the public meetings, Just do a letter or a note, even on a piece of paper. And the steering committee is not saying you must type or do in whatever form. Tell your grandchild, tell them, I want the leadership of our country to be this way. I believe Kenya can move forward as a nation.
Unfortunately,
it will be considered.
That was a big document of 150 pages minus the annexures.
Yes, and you know our reading culture.
Yes. The tragedy is this. The tragedy is this. Yeah. The only things we hear out there, including the things that are presented on today by elites such as Musalia Mudavadi, who was the vice president of this country, who's a leader of a party in this country with representation in parliament. They're touching on the nitty-gritties, what Caleb is concerned about, positions. They're not discussing the other things. That majorly the first thing that goes through your mind when you look at this is positions. Is it really fair that this is the only thing that we see when we think of BBI? Because that's what many think of.
It's not fair, Ken, how we are treating this country, Kenya, especially in BBI matters. You remember when a group of us, members of parliament and senators, went to Naivasha, we came up with a document and with a proposal which we shall present to Yusuf Haji team at the opportune time when we secure an appointment to present to him the way Musalia secured an appointment today. And part of the proposals we gave was we want 3.5% of our total tax revenue to be given to the High Court, to the courts, to the judiciary, for them to be independent, so that when Caleb is arrested, when Kalume is arrested, when Ken is arrested, you do not have any doubt in your mind that some call will come from somewhere to influence the judiciary just because they are starved of cash. We also said, Ken, we want 5%, like what is now given to CDF, to be set aside so that our youth who have finished technical colleges, those who have even graduated as lawyers, they want to open their own law firms, any youth who wants to run a business, a startup without startup capital, can get finance from there, start up their business and reimburse the way they do the help loan and everything. We also said we want 5% also to be set aside so that it's like an insurance for our farmers. If the coffee prices drop, if the tea prices drop, if we have issues with the maize prices and the milk prices like we do now, then that fund can be used to cushion farmers. Those are the things we want in BBI. The biggest problem in Kenya is not about positions. It's about how are we handling the economy of our people? I don't want to represent people who are poor. I do not want to represent people who I will have to run away from when I go to my constituency and I see them coming and I know they have issues to do with money and they want money. I want to go to my constituency and sit in a restaurant and a young border guy says, boss, kazi leo ni mzuri, mheshimiwa have a cup of tea. Okay. And he's paying for it. That is what we want to, that's what we want to do with this BBI.
Ken, the more my brother speaks, the more it is confirmed to me as not read the Boma's BBI report he was talking about. In fact, I now undertake on this national platform to give him a copy.
They are copies.
A printed copy.
So they are printed
tomorrow.
copies.
Yeah. I will give him. I may give him the one which I pulled out from the Nation newspaper. I will give it to him. The bulk of the report, if you've looked at it, Ken, is about matters economy. Actually, the BBI report is measuring on what it is called economic revolution. How can we make it, good for Kenyans to live a stable, life? How can we have a system where our youth are not idle outside there, but are useful? How can we have, institutionalized internship programs which prepare our graduates, whether from tertiary institutions and the university, for the job market? And Caleb will tell you that at the level of parliament, I sit in the committee which is dealing with, those issues. The proposal which is coming from their side, if I may, anew is the proposal on a budgetary, percentage to run the judiciary. I wanted to, tell Caleb that I'm in the committee in the National Assembly dealing with justice and legal affairs, where the judiciary, falls. These are not thoughts which are novel. These are thoughts which we've mulled over, and that committee chaired by Cheptumo for quite some time. Remember, largely, Ken, the budget of the judiciary is largely for recurrent and administration. The development is about a court being built somewhere in Homa Bay, which is a one-off thing. If you sat on a budget and settled, on a budget of about 3.5 trillion, okay, against salaries which are determined by SRC. And it was to go beyond the recurrent and administration needs. Where do you take the plans? And these are the things we've been thinking about. So that I'm telling Caleb that on the whole, these are thoughts, I think, even at our own level as leaders. I personally did a memorandum to the steering committee. The fact that, in your view, it is not captured at that percentage does not mean it was not thought through. But now that we have a validation process, Caleb, and it being the case that obviously in the initial stages you never presented, this proposal. This is the very reason as to why we are saying, even if you are opposed to the manner in which the meetings are going, document this thing and present it for consideration. Okay. And so that views of Kenyans around the issue can be considered. It is not to say they should not be considered because of form. I mean, present it in whatsoever manner conduces or is convenient to you so that they can be considered. But right. I can tell you, these are things which have taken a lot of our thinking. We thought of the judiciary. Remember, there is a judiciary fund. We now have the judiciary fund regulations. We've been pushing very hard for a situation where the constitutional provisions can, requiring that when budget says the judiciary is getting 20 billion, it goes straight away are operationalized. Yes. I mean, those are the things we're talking about. Okay. Otherwise, fixing it when you may not have a human personnel base which consumes the entire money may just end up at tying monies which we need for other national needs like the health insurance we were talking about. Some are there. But let all these thoughts go, and they are very good thoughts. Yeah, so that the steering committee can distill them together. Okay. And come up with solutions. And I've said the solutions could be constitutional interventions. People think that all these things we are talking in BBI, including land reforms, must lead to constitutional amendments. It may not be so. Others may just require, tickling or panel beating, the existing legislations. Others will just require an act of parliament. Some just require administrative policy direction. Like, remember, there was a proposal in BBI that we rename, was it Moi Day to Cultural Day, by an executive decree. That is the case now. So some of them are already moving on. The important thing is that we have this national conversation in the lucky and fortunate moment in which we are as Kenyans, and we consider all thoughts before we agree on what we converge on.
All right. I'd like to take our last break. When we come back, now that you've mentioned and we have distilled what's happening, I'd like to know the framework of adoption for some of these proposals, because every region that the BBI team has been going to, they come up with a lot of proposals. So if each region is going to bring its own proposals, how are we going to get this into the document? I'd like to discuss that. I'd also like to play the soundbite from Musalia Mudavadi shortly. But let's do this, because this is something that we do here at NTV. We endeavor to fight for you, that's the common mwananchi, by setting the agenda of matters that concern the ordinary Kenyan. Now, through our weekly team coverage on topical issues, this Wednesday, that's tomorrow, we will train our eyes on the justice system and put the judiciary on trial. We will ask if the justice system is tilted in favor of the rich, and that if the wheels of justice are rolling as fast as they should, what is the extent of the penetration of graft in the corridor of justice, and what is the impact of that penetration? And are you, as the ordinary Kenyan, satisfied with how the justice is dispensed? So join our team tomorrow, and this is our team who will be on the team coverage tomorrow. Of course, here's a sneak preview.
Wale tumefanya kesi naye wamekufa, na nimefanya kesi toka 65.
The bandit economy. Now I'm being labeled the high priest of corruption.
There's still some cartels in the judiciary.
We have had cases of corruption in the judiciary. We have sacked quite a number of judicial officers.
If you do not have a judiciary that has a good image and that has the confidence of the public, then we all suffer.
But we shall revisit.
Lipa na M-Pesa, you get more. And now you can win.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
There are surprise gifts to 8 customers every minute. Tractors with extras.
Lipa na M-Pesa.
Plus 6 apartments to be given away. Make payments via M-Pesa buy goods or pay bill. Every 100 shillings spent on Lipa na M-Pesa earns you an entry into the draw. Do more with Lipa na M-Pesa.
Looking to enjoy sumptuous meals and drinks at affordable rates? Welcome to Nasco's. Our diverse menu gives you a variety to choose from. Visit us at Veteran House 4th floor, Moi Avenue, or along Mombasa Road at the Nation Printing Press Center. We offer outside catering service and do home and office deliveries. For inquiries or to place an order, call 0700-613-902 or email info@nascos.co.ke. Nation Staff Consumer Society Limited. Enjoy our hospitality.
Rib-cracking comedy. Just move to NTV.
The responsibilities of the Prime Minister must be clearly defined and safeguarded. And if need be, the Prime Minister can have a deputy or 2 deputies. But this needs to be clearly defined.
Right, that's the proposal from Musalia Mudavadi. And indeed, as everyone says, the steering committee will definitely be receiving a lot of these proposals. So gentlemen, what I'd seek to know, from every region, we have seen about 4, if I'm not wrong, 4 or 5 regions they have visited. Began with Kisii, went to Kakamega, Mombasa, Kitui. So that's 4. They have had their own issues that they want incorporated. So what I want to know from you too, when every region is going to make their own proposal, how is this going to work? Because probably there are 4 issues that are being dealt with. Kisii will adopt 2 and reject 3. Out of the 3 rejected, they go to Kakamega. Kakamega will take 3 and reject 2, probably 1 or 2, the same that Kisii did, but different one also, plus their regional issues, same as Mombasa, they'll make land prominent, same as Kitui. At the end of the day, how are we going to deal with this, Mheshimiwa Kalim?
I don't know, Ken. I would love that question to be directed at the task force because they're the ones who have drawn up the matrix and of how they want to operate. But I want to believe that once they have collected all the views, both oral and written, they will then go for a retreat. And I'm sure they have draftsmen and ladies who will go and sit and who are already working behind the scenes in order to produce a document. So that we will be watching very closely to ensure that our views are captured. And there are some views that cannot be left out, especially views that will touch on the farmers. Those ones cannot be left out. They cannot be ignored.
But that's the attitude, Mheshimiwa, that the Deputy President is warning against. Cannot.
I'm saying that cannot because that touches on the heart of Kenya. The majority of Kenyans are farmers. The majority of Kenyans are people who are working day and night to earn a living. The majority are the poor. We need to have what will benefit them captured. And even those who are going for positions, like Honorable Musalia has mentioned in the clip you just played, that is their view. My view is that we don't need to
add anything,
but we need to strengthen devolution. We need more resources to go to the people. We need to ensure, and I said this yesterday, I think here on NTV, Ken, when I observed the 3 days that we were mourning President Moi while the body was lying in state in Parliament, the crowds were big on Saturday, the crowds were big on Sunday. I expected Monday to have smaller crowds because people are working.
But Monday was even more.
But Monday was massive. And even when it got to the closing period, we had to extend when we're sitting in Parliament for another 1 hour so that wananchi can view. That tells you that we have a lot of jobless people. None of those people was given permission from work to go and view Moi's body.
No. Everyone went, including employed people.
Yes, I'm saying.
Breaks, yes.
Most of the employed people came in on Saturday afternoon and on Sunday. But the majority of the people who came in on Monday to show their love for the former president were a lot of people.
Mheshimiwa, that could not be.
No, that is a yardstick. That is a yardstick.
It could not be.
It is a yardstick. Are you denying, Ken, that we don't have unemployment?
No, we have quite a big unemployed population.
Is a yardstick.
But you can't say for a fact that majority of those people were unemployed.
Go now tomorrow morning and just stand on the street and shout, "Ah!" and then you'll see how many people will stand around, and you'll have thousands of people looking at you and saying, because they're not sitting in offices, they're not working. They're waiting, they're trying to earn a living. So we need to address the issue of unemployment. Okay. That issue has to be addressed in this BBI. What are we going to do? And really, we cannot employ every Kenyan. So we need to empower people. We need to empower the youth to do other things so that they're not always running around with certificates.
The way the BBI report recommends.
Yes, the way the BBI report recommends, but it is not captured. When we get there, what is coming out is tunataka positions. You had a governor.
No, that's what
you had a governor say in Kisii. Mimi nimemaliza second term, nafikiri nitaenda wapi? Lazima nitafute I must get somewhere to go.
Nitaenda wapi?
Yes. It's not that once you're a governor, huwezi enda nyumbani. If you have done your 2 terms, run for any other position. And if you don't, how many Kenyans are not in parliament or governors or in Senate? There are more. So people should learn. If you have served your 2 terms, you went for that job knowing it would end this year. Jipange, you exit. Or go for any other election, but don't start creating another burden for the Kenyan.
And you believe that's about going to happen with the recommendations that is made at political forums?
Watch this space.
I have heard quite a number of people also say that President Uhuru is too young to retire.
Yes,
I've heard that.
I have heard that.
And
they are entitled to that.
And they are entitled to that opinion.
Correct.
Then even the governors are entitled to their opinion, asking where do they go? You don't need.
That's what I say.
Ultimately,
President Uhuru is not asking for a position to be created, and he has not spoken himself. These are just views. But this is a governor who has spoken. Mimi nimemaliza term yangu, mnafikiri mimi naenda wapi? President Uhuru has not spoken about continuing.
Okay.
Yeah?
That is the beauty of a national conversation. People will speak to what they believe is most important to them. It necessarily does not mean that they will come to be, what Kenya is. Remember, there are issues which will go to the Constitution. If they are going to referendum, they will be subjected to some form of vote again. So Kenyans will have to approve or disapprove. Those ones which are going to be, legislative, intervention matters, will be again dealt with by Kenyans through their elected representatives in the Houses of Parliament. The policy and others are in the leadership of Kenya. So there is no worry. Let us encourage people to give their views as far as possible. Let me talk about these regional meetings and divergences. Each region is peculiar. And each region has a unique reason as to why they don't feel they belong. This being a national conversation, it has been very encouraging that whenever meetings around BBI have been held in regions, you get those things which are at the deepest heart of the region, which they believe if dealt with, will make them feel truly Kenyan. If you go to Nyanza in particular, you remember the meeting was more laden with political and economic marginalization because of largely opposition politics. Across time. And therefore, what measures, whether affirmative otherwise, can, be brought into place to ensure that they also fail. I was just saying, you remember before, when we were in the short break, Ken, that if you look at the victims of post-election violence, 2007, 2008, for instance, the ones from Nyanza have not been entirely, compensated. No reparation at all. Remember, before elections, there was an attempt to deal with the part of Kisii, the part of Luo Nyanza, the part of Kuri, and everybody living in those regions. It's a pending issue. In the last, election, people died, again, across the region. All these issues have not been dealt with. So when you are in Nyanza, you'll hear about those issues. And it is good we talk about them because they go to our nationhood, the feeling that we are all Kenyans. When you went, Caleb, to Mombasa, the historical issues around land, and forget about those historical ones. We want the people to tell us the truth. Why do coast people at times can say, Pwani si Kenya? How beautiful and how encouraging is it when they come up and say, our main pain is around land? And by the way, as a lawyer, Ken, I can tell you there are historical issues. But go to Kilifi as we speak. Just 2 months ago, I was called by the governor in Kilifi, and I don't know whether you saw it on television, where somebody who is not even a resident of Kilifi is claiming land that would be equal to over, 3 constituencies in the Rift Valley. And this gentleman, by dint of a court order, is demolishing houses of people who are as old as 90 years. The guy is demolishing schools. And you remember, it was on a Saturday, NTV was showing it here. So if you looked at the report from Coast, they were not just talking about those ones we call historical ones, but they're saying, even now, you remember Kingi reading saying, the ongoing evictions must stop because if you are 80, 90 years, you have your children, you have your grandchildren, you are being evicted without an alternative place to go to. I mean, what connection do you have with Kenya? So the land issue, and Kilifi is a dire issue. You go to Kwale, it's a dire issue. Taita Taveta, a dire issue. Mombasa, of course, is an island, again, a dire issue. How beautiful is it that you give these people the forum, and beyond looking at what was initially there, they're saying, please deal with the land issue, and we will fail Kenya and stop what is happening to us, even over the few, property we remain with. Remember, land is already a right under the Constitution. So in terms of treating their grievances, it could be legislative. Some could be interventions with the judiciary. Why, as a judge, would you make an order for a school to be demolished without alternative for the children when education is also a right in terms of basic education? Some are just calling to national ethos and the conscience. You went to Kitui, the major thing was economic, revolution. You went to Kakamega. The main thing I captured, in fact, I was shocked as a lawyer sitting, listening to Otichilo read the memorandum. Do you know, it hit me for the first time that Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the commission we need to fight corruption, which is taking away, according to auditors' report, up to a third of our national budget each financial year, is not anchored under Chapter 15, finds itself in a mere act of Parliament being legislated pursuant to Chapter 6, which tells Parliament to create a commission. No wonder we are now going to DCI instead of working through what should be an independent commission. Didn't you hear Otichilo saying, if we are going to devolve more money to counties, which we support, we must also tighten accountability measures. Let us have Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission therein. So some will be picked. Ultimately, those which are important and require constitutional amendments will go there. Okay. Those which will, go to legislative, changes will be there. Those which just require administrative directions or policy directions. And remember, even the courts we are talking about, Caleb, are not an island. They also see those cries. I can tell you, since the coast people read that report, I've not heard of an eviction in court. Yet I'm telling you, I stayed at the governor's office throughout the weekend drafting papers to go to court to help very old people crying, saying, I was born there. My
remaining
grandfather
on
is
the land.
there.
Okay.
Who is this guy taking all of
They have
my
even
land?
the
So
graveyards
the
there.
question you are asking is how do we harmonize
Then put it
these regional things? I'm saying the steering committee, the BBI steering committee, must be attentive. Get what Kenyans are saying, whether it is a memorandum to you, whether it is in those public meetings, whether it is a private, letter on a concern. Get a way to, in terms of validation, capture them and get a way to locate them, whether for constitutional amendments, whether legislative, whether policy, and let us move. You've heard some people say, Caleb, that some of these people are in past reports. We had the Ndungu Commission report. We had that one of the TJRC report. We had all these reports are there. BBI gives us the opportunity, and remember one of the things we are talking about in BBI is national ethos. It is giving us a platform as Kenyans to ask, why are we not implementing? If they are not captured, pick them up. If they are already captured, let us actionize them so that we can have a nation called Kenya. And so I say it is beautiful. The burden is on the steering committee to secure that every matter of concern uniquely to each region are captured and are put on the table of Kenyans upon the validation for consideration and resolution in terms of how we move forward.
Mheshimiwa, do you see us going for a third round? Because at what point will we have the second validation? Do you see us going for a third round after these views are captured and they're collated?
Well, Ken, first of all, the term that this Haji team has is up to June, I think, is what the president said. But from his party leader...
A report must have been presented by June.
Yeah, will have been presented by June. But from his party leader, we need to end by March and go for a referendum almost immediately. Which
still falls within that period.
Suggestion.
But still falls within the period, by June 30th.
Yes. By June 30th. I think the task force is got a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do, and it is up to them to assure us. But I want to say that the views of Kenyans have to be captured, and I've said this before, BBI must, and I repeat, we have to think about the common mwananchi. We have to think about the common mwananchi. It is not about positions. I've just seen there that somebody gave a suggestion that this matter of inclusivity can be healed or cured in the cabinet. We don't have to create a second tier, third tier of government. You saw your tweet, I think, by one of the viewers, which is a very good suggestion. So that our wage bill will remain more or less the same, and we will have sorted out the issues that we have.
But Mheshimiwa, even that is impossible because the cabinet in the constitution, maximum of 22. How will it still be incorporated?
Ken,
we have 47.
you are being unfair to
No, I'm just saying for the viewer, not for his
those are views.
Sharing his thoughts. Yes.
I'm not being unfair. I'm just asking. Even that will still be unrealistic because we want to create 5 positions at the top.
Can I tell you something I would have not told you now that we are in a national platform? Have you ever seen President Uhuru Kenyatta or Deputy President William Ruto in Homa Bay County since they took reins in 2013? Just tell me which part.
Well, not Homa Bay County.
And many counties they haven't been. I'm telling you.
There are many counties they haven't been.
That is why for people like where I come from, we are saying possibly the president could be busy, the deputy could be busy. If we had a prime minister from the western region, for instance, maybe one of those top 5 or 6 people would have come. Because we are also in a nation where we are being made to believe, contrary to the constitution, that until a president or a deputy president comes to say, let this be done, nothing is happening. And that is why we are talking of inclusivity. That is not to say, even Ken, that it is the region I'm coming from that is saying, we are interested in prime minister. Remember, we produced the second prime minister of the country. We could be looking at other things. What we are saying is that let there be a feeling of inclusivity.
But still, my point, Mheshimiwa Kaluma, my point is, even if we were to do that, there's still regions in this country that will still be feel left behind. So what they are proposing is, let's stop addressing or just patching this problem. Let's find a lasting solution. And I think the lasting solution is even in the constitution already. But we're just trying to patch it, to do patchwork, to cover our nakedness wherever necessary.
Ken, let us have proposals, including what is already there. And then let us harmonize those proposals with a clear heart, spirit and heart, that we want a Kenya where everybody feels they belong.
The cure that we really actually require is amongst the leadership. And whereby the winner of an election should not feel that X county and X county voted for me, so I should direct resources there, because X county didn't vote for me, so we will slow down development in that county. We need to have, that's why we say, let us strengthen devolution further, so that the development that you're depending on from the national government is minimized. So it doesn't matter who is president. It matters who is governor.
Yeah, that is
one solution. It should matter who is governor. So, and that way we maintain the same wage bill.
Okay.
And then us as leaders, when we run for positions, let us accept. If we are 10 people running for president, let us accept there can only be one president, there can only be one winner. Because that is where our problems start. And we say, now, I was rigged out, I would have won, I had the biggest crowds in every rally I went. So that cure
tell me something
is within ourselves.
I agree with you 100%. That's a good proposal. But tell me, like the last election, this country was divided right in the middle. President Kenyatta
and the elections were nullified.
+1, right? And that's why he was elected a second time. But even if you look at the initial before the election was nullified, they almost got 50-50 of this country. So the question that needs to be addressed is this other person who almost got 50, got 49.9, and this other one got 50+1, right? Where do we take him? Do we just allow him to stay at home?
The deputy president had said, no, we should take him.
Ken, we had that proposal in 2012 before we went for the elections, that the loser should be nominated to a position of his choice, either in the Senate or Parliament. A loser, or rather the runner-up, let me say the runner-up in the presidential election, him and his running mate should be nominated, so that whatever they wanted to prosecute, if they had won the election, they can do it from the opposition.
But it's not in the Constitution.
It's not in the Constitution, but that could have been done. And that is a proposal that we need to have now, that when we're going into the election of 2022, whoever is the second, the runner-up in the election, should be nominated by his political party, and his running mate should be nominated.
That's another solution.
They automatically become leader of opposition and deputy leader of opposition, and there is nothing that they cannot do with those positions. They can prosecute their matters there,
and they're given
and then
money,
let them form the
office,
opposition
and
cabinet, and they'll be the watchdog to watch over government, so that we don't have to create something that is going to give us a problem again implementing. Already, we have not implemented this constitution 100%, and here we are. Now trying to, and what Kaluma said is some of the matters would require legislation in Parliament, and some already, like the executive order for the renaming of boxing, they are already in place. But let's ask ourselves, have we implemented this constitution fully? Maybe we don't even need BBI. If we can implement this constitution fully, we may not need BBI.
Okay.
Ken, as a lawyer, I've been in court over this constitution. Sometimes I also do not go to court. I just sit down, like when I leave now, to see the law reports. There is no constitution which has been tested like this one. And I thank Kenyans for being very litigious. Today you have Ukia Mtata, you have the civil society, you have even individuals using the open access to court system built in the constitution, accessing courts very freely. Remember, Kositan, before you would go to court, like the matters of Kia is going to court over, and you'd be told, you don't have locus standi. It must be the person directly affected. Today, I mean, you go to the public law courts, people are going. So when I hear people say this constitution has not been, tested,
fully implemented,
which is this provision you're saying has not been tested here? And I will tell you, just click that provision on Kenya Law Report.
You'll find
and you'll get it tested. Okay. This is why we are saying you can talk economy. But Caleb, it is delusional to say we are going to build the economy without talking leadership. There is a proposal you see from some people, I've not said Kenyans must or will have to pass it, that we have a hybrid system or we go a parliamentary system. Caleb, with me, Ken, are in parliament. Ask Caleb how difficult it is to get a response from a cabinet secretary or a principal secretary. And I want to tell you, Caleb, I was in the last parliament. It will be more difficult as you approach mid next year going to elections. In fact, they'll never come. They'll give you promises, you want a follow-up, they're not there. How do you compare that to the previous parliaments, the 10th and other parliaments, where you had ministers seated in parliament as members of parliament? You know, most of those issues we are calling cabinet secretary, we are wasting time in parliament. Most of them were not even handled on the floor. You would be sitting with a colleague in our restaurant there. You have an issue with education. It is sorted out there.
Yeah. Okay.
If you have to take it to the floor, it gives commitment in terms of period, Ken. And by that period, you just shoot up from your seat and you tell the speaker, he did undertake, he's not dealt with it. And the guy had nowhere to hide.
Yes.
It's a more responsive system to the representatives of the people. Remember, in that system, the minister was not earning a separate pay like we have the cabinet secretaries today. They were just earning some 100,000 or so, responsibility allowance.
Okay.
Won't you be saving all these monies you are giving ministers and their team of staff and
Okay.
Is it more accountable? And that is why I'm saying sometimes you may be expanding the top there, not necessarily to create positions. If you're going to have a prime minister, you're saying you want somebody at the top answering to the representatives of the people in parliament regularly. Do you remember the time when Right Honorable Raila Odinga was the prime minister? Was there a more interesting and more focused day than the Wednesdays during the prime minister's time?
We watch the British parliament all the time. And it's
these things, I would request, my brother, that let us not shut ourselves out or encourage any Kenyan to not to bring their thoughts. Let all these thoughts be brought. And we have tested these constitutions, even in the presidential system we know the weaknesses. At the level of parliament, Caleb, I would have even encouraged that we also, pick those things that are affecting the proper functioning of parliament. And as parliament, we present it. Can you remember the other day we had this stalemate on division of revenue between the Senate and the National Assembly? That is something that can collapse government at all levels. I remember us representing the National Assembly in the Supreme Court the other day. Isn't it, beautiful? I think that we have a platform where even as members of parliament, to strengthen parliament, we can be saying we need this.
Okay.
The judiciary made presentations before and said, the time you give us to determine presidential petitions is too short. Because look, Caleb, you've not been in a situation where we are petitioning. But let me tell you today, when we were preparing the petition, for the presidential petition in the last elections, I can remember some 4 or 7 lawyers who were in charge of drafting never changed their clothes for a whole week. We did not have even time to bathe for a whole week. Because of the short timelines. And then when you go to court like 2013, the judges tell you, our decision is this, the reasons will come
later.
That creates more tensions than if the judges gave reasons. And remember, therefore, Chief Justice Maraga came before us another time when he was chairing the election committee and was telling the Court of Appeal and said, we request for this thing to be moved to 30 days. And some of us were saying there is a problem with this. And some were saying, in Ghana, they have up to 60 days. But ultimately give us, the opportunity to give a reasoned determination that can quell tensions, that can leave everybody saying there was actually a problem or this thing was a free and fair election.
And there's no vacuum, so what is the hurry?
What is the problem? Giving even the judiciary the chance, like the things they are proposing, 3.5%. We need this and this.
But accountability.
The main thing affecting judiciary around funding, Caleb, now, is this administrative thing called IFMIS.
Gentlemen,
why can't we just have a position that the judiciary can have their judiciary fund, their budget is there, they run it the way they receive your CDF.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So let us have a conversation. Let us put restrictions.
All right, gentlemen, we are completely out of time. I like to play the cartoon of the week, then I'll play Who Said What, but after the cartoon, I'd like you to give your final remarks. So this is our cartoon of the week. All right, this is something that you definitely saw in the newspapers today by Munene, right? There's a tree and there's a gentleman, this is someone else. So your analysis, it's right behind you. If that is too far, Mheshimiwa Kaluma, you can look at this. Right here, you can also see it. Mheshimiwa, you can see the one right in front of you. Yes. So where do we begin with your interpretation of this cartoon?
Can Kositan say something about it?
I
don't know these two heads.
That looks like Mheshimiwa
the
former CS.
The yellow
like,
necktie
yes,
would appear to be, you know, the yellow movement head is the deputy president. So I want to assume that is the deputy president.
Mm-hmm.
The one on top does not quite capture the person, but by the natural sneer, he appears to be. This is the former CS Echeza, and then DCI is throwing a catapult. My fear is that my fear is that the level of this catapult will appears to be directed more at if we were to assume this is the deputy president. Yeah, it depends on dimensions, but you know, I pulled catapults. Yeah, so my reading would be that the cartoonist is saying there is no way in the manner the catapult is arranged, you will shoot at the head on top without affecting the head below. And in any event, if you are to shoot the head on top, it will still fall on or with the head below. That would be my interpretation. I, of course, do not understand the context in which the tune is being done.
Well, Ken, that is just a cartoon. Really, there's nothing into it. Of course, that is a Chesa's head pressing on to the deputy president's head, and you can see that deputy president seems to be
a little strained, yes.
Straining. And it's just a cartoon, really.
What did he want to achieve with this, the cartoonist? Because we're trying to read into the mind of the cartoonist.
Well, of course, he's saying deputy president is carrying a Chesa. It's not a secret that Chesa's former cabinet secretary is a friend of the deputy
taking
president.
the deputy president down.
Yeah.
Because you see, this head is bigger than.
You're back to your own analogy again.
But you see, even if Chesa were to take the deputy president down, he has no force to press down. He is at the limit. You can see. I mean, it's a good cartoon, but that's it. It's just a cartoon.
Okay. Gentlemen, your interpretations of the cartoons. All right, let's do the final remarks. Now that you spoke last, perhaps, Mheshimiwa Kaluma, your summary of this.
Yes, my view is that fellow Kenyans, very rarely do nations get an opportunity to discuss matters affecting their society and themselves in the manner Kenya has been lucky to, in peace times, from a very difficult situation. Let us, take the BBI process as a process we can use to better our nation. For those who have given your views, who gave before the validation report, I must congratulate you and thank you for it. For those coming out, either through regions or through memoranda or correspondence directly to the steering committee, I encourage you to do so. If you are a well-meaning Kenyan who knows where we are coming from and where we should go, please let your views be heard. As Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga says, this thing is off. I largely believe he's saying there will be no time like this. Let us use the time, let our views be considered, and I request the steering committee in charge of BBI to ensure that those views are properly distilled, and in good time we have the draft constitutional proposals, the draft legislative proposals, so that we can have clear directions and concretize in our debates going forward. I thank you.
Well said.
My turn?
Yes.
Yes, good. Thank you, Ken, and thank you, my colleague, Honorable Kaluma. I think with this BBI, I think going forward, we want to see more sober behavior in the rallies. We want to see the rallies that are coming forward from this Saturday being very inclusive as the spirit of BBI. We also want to see the politicians taking a backseat and let the steering committee take charge of the meetings so that nobody feels that this is an ODM meeting, this is an ex-party meeting, so that we feel that it's actually the task force, the steering committee that is taking charge of the BBI. And we encourage Kenyans to come up with views and solid views. We want to ask, the heart of our nation is our youth, who majority are jobless and are well educated. They are well educated. We really want to ask them to think also outside the box and not just be thinking about looking for employment. Think of what can I do to earn a living other than being employed, and how can I achieve that, and give those proposals so that it is documented within the BBI, so that we come out with a document that will last us a lifetime, so that we don't have to run up again into the same situation whereby after another election we will sit down and say, okay, no, that didn't work. Let us now have another handshake and another BBI. We should be done with handshakes now. We should have, this BBI should solve all the issues that we have, and then we move forward as a country.
Right, gentlemen, well said. And before we do the final part of the show, here is our segment for this week. Who said what?
Hizo nzige vile siko ni sayelo. Hizo yellow color. Inamaanisha ni nzige wazee. Zimezeeka karibu sikufe.
What's interesting with this is his predecessor said right before he left that take pictures of the locusts and send us the pictures, then we will know where they are. If you find a locust, take a picture.
I want to congratulate our new Minister for Agriculture. You know, I'm shocked
I think we had close to this.
At how fast, you know, he's learnt the cycle of
the science of locusts.
Yes, so much so that he knows when they turn yellow, they're largely breeding. They're largely breeding.
Yes.
Because that is what he said. They are breeding, and you need to be checking what will be happening after that. I mean, it is a beautiful thing.
All right.
I think I'm going to study insectology.
So that at least you can speak authoritatively like he does.
Yes.
All right, let's do the final part of the show. So tonight we end the show with remembering one of the Kenya's foremost and best politicians, or said to be one of the best politicians. He disappeared this month, 30 years ago. I know, gentlemen, you already know who I'm speaking about. That's Dr. Robert Ouko. Now, his death is still a mystery 3 decades later. On this day, 30 years ago, to the date, barely 2 days after Dr. Ouko's body was recovered at Got Alila, this was the headline: Demos as churchmen condemn Ouko killing. A group of university students also, that's Nairobi University students, and mourners marched in the streets of Nairobi calling on the government to tell the truth about the minister's death. 30 years on, no one knows the truth yet. And of course, that's a good place to end our show tonight. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming. Thanks for my team. Let's do this again next week on Tuesday. And we already have a guest, but I won't tell you the guest coming next week on Tuesday. But stay here on Sidebar. Of course, tomorrow is Wednesday. Our team coverage on the judiciary. That also coming up tomorrow. But enjoy the rest of our programming. Have a good night, and let's do this again.